good evening everybody and welcome to the latest round in the Radical Esports Cup in the final season of 2025. We arrive at the Hockenheimring to bring us to 2/3 distance, by the way, at the end of tonight. Just 14 laps tonight before for the fifth last round of the season. Myself, Unilarian, Ron Mouse alongside me with Hugo Louise behind the cameras tonight. Run after last week's difficulty in overtaking at Mid-Ohio. We've got some more well-balanced circuits coming up for the remainder of the season. Some circuits, in fact, at Le Mans and Monza, where it might actually be a bit too easy to overtake, but this one should be a well-balanced circuit.
Yeah, I gotta say, overall, it has been a well-balanced schedule that we have had. We've had our mix of really draft-heavy races, others that have been far more technical, but as you just said, Ewan, getting into the end of this championship with the Hockenheimring, the season finale track for Season 3, Monza, which is always going to be a fun one, Watkins Glen, which put on one of the best races last season, Le Mans, which is definitely a venture off into the unknown, Road Atlanta, which most certainly isn't for the season finale. We pretty much know, outside of Le Mans, what we're expecting for the final few weeks of the season, but even then with Le Mans, even though that's an unknown quantity of a racetrack here in this series, we know it's going to be draft heavy. We know it is going to be a really frenetic race, but here at the Hockenheimring, maybe a bit more tempered compared to the tracks that lie ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be hopefully balanced enough as we have a look at the overall standings in iRacing. Andreas Friedrich leading at the moment by 121 points over Havert Gulliksen. Peter Eveny is 226 back in third place. Some very big gaps up here. Heinz Bruen in fourth place is 409 back. Massive gaps, although it does tend to close up towards the end of the season, and with drop weeks it's hard to know quite who's where even at this stage. Andre Castro rounds out the top five as it stands now, though, with George Gonzaga, Sully Reitinen, Ole Gulliksen, Luca Elhasser, who we've not seen in our broadcasted races here, in ninth, and then Brian Odo, who rounds out the top 10. That's in the iRacing standings. Odo made his debut, by the way, in our races in the 7th round of our broadcast for the final season of 2025, and in our standings that we're keeping here at Raceblock TV, amongst the races that we have covered, Andre Castro has accumulated the most points. He's accumulated 3 wins, and he's just ahead of Havert Gulliksen, who he beat to that race win last week, Ron, at Mid-Ohio. I felt in the race, to be fair, that Gulliksen didn't quite go as hard for the overtake as he maybe could have done. However, it's easy to say that from here, and it's also hard to say whether that would have made any difference, whether if he'd have just tried harder it would have worked. Probably not. So Castro just in front of him, Gulliksen there as well, and they're both here again tonight, but we've got some other names up towards the top. Peter Eveny currently leads the way, Sebastian Lipp on the front row with him as well, and that doesn't look like it's going to count for Christoph Lipp, who goes over the line there. He hasn't been at too many races this season that we've done, but good to see him back again here tonight for the first time since the Algarve nearly a month ago.
Yeah, I'm probably going to see a lot of racers make their appearances. I heard some rumblings that the Hockenheimring was going to be a part of. I can't remember whether it was the World Finals qualifier coming up or whether it's going to be part of the World Finals event coming up here soon. But either way, seeing a really stacked field of racers, some drivers that we see a lot of here in these 2100 GMT broadcasted official races here on Racebot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And seeing a name that I recognize, Kian Gagarin, I usually see him race very strongly in the Formula 1600s here on iRacing. Nice to see him out here on the racetrack in the SR10s. Let's see what that usual open wheel driver can do here in these very tough to handle Radical SR10s. And nice to see Sebastian Lipp back there on the circuit. We've had a pretty wild season with many different winners. Andre Castro was able to break through with win number 3, but outside of that, we've just had a whole just a massive group of one-win wonders thus far this season. William Barron, who we haven't seen really since the opening weeks, won in round number 2 at the Nürburgring. James Berry won round 3 at Imola. Vard Gulliksen won at Belle Isle. And Sebastian Lipp was able to get the W at Zandvoort as he grabs the W here in qualifying, jumping up to the pole.
Yeah, he is for now, but I think his brother's still yet to come, and Dennis Kyriakopoulos, his teammate, is still yet to come as well, as he just back down to third again. Time for the final corner. Out he comes now onto the front straight. Christoph only getting to 8th place. Look at the closeness of this session. Kyriakopoulos is going to go quicker, is he? No, he's 4.5 tenths away. He's actually 2 tenths behind Sully Rattinen. In 11th place, he's only a quarter of a second off of the current pole sitter, and he is outside of the top 10. This is an incredibly close session.
Yeah, super, super close, super tight. I mentioned right at the top end of the show how this was the season finale for Season 3. And even though it was the first time in quite some time, in fact, maybe the first time ever in the Radical Esports Cup that we saw the Hockenheimring play host to a race here in this championship. It was close then, certainly close here. These racers have gone a boatload of experience, a boatload of practice running around here, and you can tell based off the fact that the 16 drivers who have set a qualifying time all covered by 1.2 seconds, and this isn't a small track either, a minute and a half as the lap time. So the fact the field is as close as it is with the lap times as comparatively long as they are compared to other racetracks where you'd see qualifying this close really shows you how competitive this series is.
Yeah, it really is. Every week here in top split of the iRacing Radical Esports Cup, we're here on the iRacing and RaceBot YouTube channels, and good to be back, of course, for another week. An hour earlier, as we are now, for everybody, now that the clocks have gone back, for those places in the world that do observe that sort of thing. And here we are at the 2100 GMT race again for another week. And for the fifth last round of the championship season, it is going to be Sebastian Lipp who takes pole. He's directly in front of his teammate Andreas Friedrich, and on the other side of the grid, it's Andre Castro and Peter Eveny. What's for Castro trying to get into the lead immediately at turn 1. Heinz Braun is the last driver, along with Havik Gulliksen, within a tenth of a second of the pole lap, with Kian Gerety just outside of that in 7th. Then it's Christoph Lipp, who's in the number 1 car and going to be losing iRacing if he's not careful from there. Rafa Blanco, and Franco Sanchez-Buckley then ran out the top 10, with Sully Rudson within 2.5 tenths as well. He's not too far away. Then it's Kyriakopoulos with Alexander Shushka in 13th, George Gonzaga in 14th, Paki Caruso and Oscar Pesavento then next ahead of Mehmet Berat Akers, who rounds out the field in 17th position. So a couple of new names, Shushka and Mehmet Berakakis, I don't think we've seen this season. I haven't seen Kian Gerety either, but mostly familiar names, and Castro is going to see this as a big chance to get into the lead in towards turn 1, I would say, with him on the outside of the front row.
Yeah, I would say probably the hairpin at the back end of the circuit may be a better spot to get a move done. Turn 1, that's hard enough just to try and do it single file, let alone side by side. So if you can get the fantastic start, these cars very tricky to get off the line with the wheel spin. You got to burn up the clutch as you get the car rolling. So if he can master the start, he could very well jump into the race lead and just drive off into the sunset. But that's a big if and a big ask as we see this field head their way down to turn number 1. Maybe a source of trouble in the mid-pack as well. Keep an eye on this field to try and negotiate the first lap as cleanly and smoothly as they possibly can.
It's a long wait in the background there as Rafa Blanco still can't decide what he's going to do. There's not a lot to sort out before these races, to be honest. It's only 14 laps, but he wants to use up all the gridding time before getting us going. And now he gets onto the grid. We are ready to go. The 8th round of the Radical Esports Cup in the final season of 2025 is set to get underway. Is the run good enough from Castro as he gets alongside Sebastian Lipp towards turn 1? It is. And Friedrich's there and waiting. He's going to try and get the run 3 wide maybe. Castro saw that coming. He defends to the inside, but Friedrich goes through the middle anyway. We're 3 wide, coming down in towards turn 2. And the pole sitter is the one going backwards here. Andre Castro leads this race. Sebastian Lipp pushed out wide to 3rd as Friedrich goes round his outside. And he spins in front of the field. A massive moment for Peter Eveny as well, as he has to go to the grass to avoid him. Friedrich goes to the back of the field on lap 1. Eveny's dropping as well. He spun in retaliation as he tried to avoid Friedrich spinning across the road. And into the mess steps Sebastian Lipp, who tries to get his lead back again. Oh, it's a big dive down the inside as well. There's contact down here at the hairpin, as there always is. It's a chaotic start, and 2 of the top 5 are gone on lap 1.
And Franco Sanchez-Buckley nearly went for Renda Bowling heading down into turn number 1. Looking at side-by-side racing now going on. That's Havik Gulliksen and Heinz Braun. That's a battle for the final 2 spots inside the top 5. Such a hectic and chaotic start here at the Hockenheimring. 3 wide heading down into turn number 3. These racers were duking it out big time at the start. Everybody wants a lead lap 1 here at the Hockenheimring, but there's only so much you can do. For Andres Friedrich, that was about as nightmarish of a start that he could have possibly had.
Oh, Gerety spins in front of Gulliksen. Gulliksen goes off the circuit. He's going to rejoin in the penultimate turn, and he, doesn't do it expertly, but he gets on. In any case, he is back in the pack now, though. Goodness me. Kian Garrity goes around and he drops back to the pit lane. Unfortunately, that is going to be the end of his day by the looks of things. He disappears from the server. Christoph Lippers also had trouble on this opening lap, by the way. So it's all been happening here. Gonzaga gets past Gullikson, so does Pesavento. Mehmet Berat-Akers has gained places as well as Pesavento just because of the incidents and accidents that have been going on lap 1 here.
As we look at this hornet's nest of 4 cars all packed in like sardines, contact being made. That's going to go nearly 3 wide, heading down the backstretch into the hairpin in a few moments' time. The ideal overtaking opportunity being used between these racers, as I think it's also being used up at the front with Sebastian Lipp and Andre Castro briefly swapping spots.
3 wide in towards the hairpin, but they make it through a bit cleaner than what they did on lap number 1. Well, goodness me, what a start to this race. Maybe it will just calm down a little bit now, but Sebastian Lipp leads ahead of Andre Castro. They seem to have got a gap that over the rest of the field that might well hold now, unless the others get organised, because it is a big group from 3rd all the way down to 9th place. Going to be difficult to organise, but at the moment, that's what the situation is. The top 2 are ahead of the rest, and Gullikson's battled his way back through to 10th, but these guys are fighting so hard back here that big gaps are being created for Gullikson to have to close now.
Yeah, in the early stages of one of these races here in the Radical Esports Cup, it can get hair racing. We certainly saw it here at the start at the Hockenheimring here today. But in the midst of all of that, within the chaos, within everybody throwing haymakers at each other, it is a very crucial section of the race. If you get off to a poor start and lose out on some time, the road ahead is so tricky to try and make up that time once again, as we see Andres Friedrich with that slide, hit the curb, went into the dirt, and look at that, the expert work there from Peter Eveny. I think he kept it out of the barrier still, even with that half spin, but that was expert work there from Peter Eveny, trying to keep that car going in a straight line. It nearly ended in disaster about 15 times. It did end in disaster for Kian Garrity as he spun heading out of the stadium section.
Yeah, and that was Gullikson who got collected here as down in towards the hairpin. Franco Sanchez-Buckley goes through on Heinz Brunn, as does Paki Caruso up into the top 5, and it's still side by side. Actually, is Caruso, I think, once more. He's on the inside of Buckley as Sully Rattanen looks to use this as an opportunity to get away. It's outside for Buckley, and it's very late on the brakes, in fact. Side-to-side contact. Caruso, has to just be knocked back for a moment there, and he's actually behind Braun for a brief moment here, outside of the top 5, but he gets back onto the single file again, and they sort it out again. But that was very close again through the hairpin between these guys. This is sort of the battle we were sort of hoping, and I think we did see last season, if it was last season, when we last raced at the Hockenheimring. You know, this is what you see for the race lead, but because of lap 1, it's going to be just Lipp and Castro in a 1v1 rather than this sort of group, which is going to maintain, you would have thought, for some time.
Yeah, it's been a breakout up at the front. They have pulled away, driven off into the sunset, but for those battles a little bit farther behind where we haven't had drama at the start of this race really break up the battling, you're just going to see these trains of cars form. Similar in an odd sense to other tracks like Watkins Glen and Imola, where we usually see this style of racing where there's so many tight and twisty turns where drivers can make mistakes, but there are those long flat-out blasts that keep these racers packed in like sardines. Still, Rafa Blanco just got abducted by a UFO there, so hopefully he did not have a bad Martian encounter. As we look at side-by-side racing going on with Tez Kyriakopoulos and Heinz Braun side-by-side as they head their way into the hairpin. Look at this never-ending stream of Radical SR10 still duking it out as they're side-by-side at the hairpin into the Mercedes-Benz arena.
Yeah, Heinz Braun comes through into 6th position then. He will secure that place in front of Kyriakopoulos, and then Blanco, and then Alexander Schuska, who is down in 9th. Gullikson is still fighting with those guys back there for a mere 10th place, which you won't be pleased with, because he knows he's quicker than this. I know he didn't qualify that much better, but 6th place is quite a lot better, really, but he's going to be frustrated, surely, by getting involved with these guys, and this is a bad race for this week, unfortunately, for Harvard Gullikson. That is a bit of a shame for him, because he seemed to qualify okay, and the incident, of course, that sent him back here was nothing to do with him.
Yeah, and I think one thing that may prevent him from really staking claim on any serious spots farther up the road, we'll get a good view of it if we can hold on to this camera shot. Hang down to turn number 1. You can see the small little ruffling of the left-hand side bodywork on that race car. Right by, I guess it would still technically be the side pod. That's my open wheel mind kind of thinking there. But right by the air vent to cool off the rear brakes and the engine, you can see the ruffling of the bodywork. That doesn't seem like too much, but in these aero-sensitive Radical SR10s, that could slow you down an eternity heading down the straightaway. And you can see it right there. Even with the draft of Packy Caruso right in front, there's really nothing that he could do as, my apologies, that's not Caruso, that's Presavento, farther up the road. Even with the draft from Oscar Presavento, he couldn't really keep any sort of speed heading down that back straightaway and lost out on that spot. May not seem like a major thing, but in these SR10s, a small little tweak to the bodywork can spell disaster.
This is a splintering second group now. The battle for 6th place is the highest place they can get here. Blanco, Kyriakopoulos, Braun and Shushka all here. Oh, that's a look from Braun. Pretty late, but they get away with it here. And the front 3 get away. Sully Rattinen's already been able to get away, actually, in 3rd place. Buckley and Caruso are now a 2-car battle as well, as is the race lead, which Andre Castro at the moment seems to be slightly struggling to stay with Sebastian Lipp, but he's still in the slipstream, so he should be okay, really. And yeah, it's just a very, very different look to this group now. Shows that, well, slipstream is very sort of easily keeping the groups together in time. If you battle too hard, the groups start to really break apart very quickly.
Yeah, pretty much in these battles, as much as it's a matter of getting in front of one another, there's a bit of a pin the tail on the donkey sort of the situation, but it's not a tail, it's not a donkey, it's pinning an anvil onto the back end of a racer right around you. Doesn't have the same ring as pin the tail to the donkey, but no, these competitors, if they start to battle too hard, it's just going to cause them to careen down the running order. If you look at some of the lap times of these racers that are caught up in these really frenetic battles, you can just see the lap time slowly but surely drift away, the pace slowly but surely fade away as these racers put more and more on their tires. That was a huge slide from Akis right there in the back of Sean, the number 16 car, warming up the tires a bit too much, heading out of the hairpin, trying to get the throttle back pin down. This is essentially a never-ending train of race cars all the way from this battle between Packy Caruso and Franco Sanchez. Buckley with Caruso going for the dive.
Yeah, turn 10, which is a bit unusual. Or turn 11, rather. And he gets through into 4th place for now, but you'd think with a gap over the guys behind, and not a very big gap, that they might want to just drive this home and maybe try and even catch up to Raikkonen, although that might be quite difficult. He just goes for it at an orthodox place there, Caruso, and he's through on Buckley. So if these two let it get out of hand, then they could let groups from behind catch them. It just worked the other way. So they've got to be very, very careful of this, and we'll see whether Buckley tries to respond or whether he realises that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things at play in this battle. Do you want to just have a clean run through to the very end? With the amount of chaos and drama that we have already seen, it may be shocking to say the fact that we are just now at the halfway mark of this race here. It feels like we've had about 5 races worth of battling, 5 races worth of action. Buckley decides to takes a high road there. He lifts out of it, doesn't go for the move heading down into the turn, but now he's got to worry about both trying to get him moved on a Packy Caruso and worrying about the never-ending stream of race cars running right in tow. It is just a never-ending train of machines throughout this pack, which is great to see from our perspective here in the broadcast booth, but can be rather unnerving too. So as we continue to see these battles going on, I gotta commend these racers for battling as hard as they are, and for the most part keeping it clean.
Yeah, for the most part, especially after lap 1, we've seen a very clean race since then. Kieran Gerety unfortunately out of the race since then, and Christoph Lipp's pit stop has seen him all the way down in 16th, and he doesn't look like he's going to recover from that unless there are incidents up ahead, which there could be, but at the moment he's a long way down as a result of what has gone on so far in this race for Christoph Lipp. As we cross halfway in this race tonight, just 14 laps it is. Sebastian Lipp nearly leading by a second. He is running well out front. Of course, has already won this season. In fact, just 2 weeks ago at Zandvoort, although he had a lot of pressure from Havik Gulliksen in that race, it must be said. On this time around, he's not got anywhere near as much pressure from Castro.
As we jump to this battle with Heinz Braun, maybe trying to apply a little bit of pressure to Schutzke right in front. You can see the weaving going on, trying to break that draft. Maybe a bit of bump drafting will work out here as well. Heinz Braun, usually one of the more aggressive racers here in the Radical SR10 officials. He is never one to take it easy. He's always going to go for the moves and be a little bit on the racier end. He doesn't go for the move, though, heading down into the hairpin, which is slightly surprising to me. But as that battle is looking to cool off as they head their way off through the time twisties at the end of the lap, I do want to ask you here, you kind of talking about Zandvoort a few weeks ago here in this series. I think there are some comparisons that can be drawn between the Hockenheimring and Zandvoort. Zandvoort currently a part of the F1 calendar. Hockenheimring used to be a part. I think that both of them very much so deserve their spot and put on some good racing. And they're also old school racetracks in the world of European motorsports. Zandvoort has been around forever. The Hockenheimring has been around forever. They've also undergone some major reconfigurations from the old faster layouts that they used to be into some more technical and compact circuits in the turn of the century. There's some very intriguing comparisons that can be drawn between the two facilities.
Yeah, I think in terms of layout, they're not too similar, but yeah, I suppose as far as that story is concerned, they are pretty similar. Historic places that have gone through modern revamps, if you like, in the last, of course, few weeks we've been there for this series. This circuit, a much more condensed version of what the previous one was, although I've got to say it doesn't really feel like what the previous one does, as it was very unique, of course, as Rafa Blanco gets into the back of Caruso. That body language, I think, saying, please stop defending from me. I want to try and catch Reuten in a battle for a podium place here. But, oh, he's just pushed off his rival into the outside there. And Rafa Blanco, does he feel guilty enough to let the place go again? Not that guilty. He pulls straight in front of him. Paki Caruso has not got teamwork on his mind, though, I've got to say. He's now on the outside in front of the Mercedes grandstand. He goes back through again at turn 4. And Blanco has to tuck back in. Buckley and Kyriakopoulos forced to watch. And these two, I feels like miscommunicating a little bit. They're both weaving at each other, but it's quite hard to say words through body language driving a car.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky. Even in real life, you can do any sort of hand signals that you would like, some of which I don't think we can broadcast here on Race Spot. Believe me, I've been in that situation back in my own karting days. But no, a lot of the times you see some racers kind of gesticulate their arms in a certain way, especially in karts. Kind of, I always remember this: the tap of the back of the helmet to say, "Give me a bump, give me a draft," to try and push me along. You can't do that in one of these races, and I think these racers have more important worries on their mind instead of reaching up to their keyboard and typing out a message into the chat. And one thing to raise here in this series, considering the Radical SR10 community on the iRacing platform is so diverse and so international, there's sometimes going to be a bit of a language barrier between racers as well. Franco Sanchez Buckley racing in South America. You got Dennis Kyriakopoulos from Switzerland, Paki Caruso from Italy, Sally Reitnen from Finland, Andre Castro, the American, Sebastian Lipp, the German. Very strong German representation here in this series. A lot of them driving for Inert Racing, too. Pretty strong contingent they've got in that team, as I think I actually see one of the Inert drivers going side by side a little bit farther in the back. I believe it's Peter Ivany and Andreas Friedrich that are duking it out for P11. Even after being down for the count earlier, Andreas Friedrich still not giving up.
No, he certainly isn't. He's still outside the top 10, mind, but he is still pushing on and tries to get past Ivany. That's difficult. Of course, Ivany had to avoid Friedrich as he was spinning around, so both of these two are coming back. And unfortunately, Gulliksen hasn't been able to come back quite the same way. He's down in 15th place at the moment. So a couple more places to make up, or one more in case of Ivany, for a top 10 finish and more points in our Racepot TV standings, as it were. But as things stand, Andre Castro would be taking a resounding lead, even though for maybe even the first time this season, Rob, we've seen Castro beaten in races. Maybe Zandvoort, to be fair, he didn't quite have the speed, but we've seen Castro win races, we've seen him lose out in battles, but we've not seen him, I don't think, outclassed and outpaced in the way that Sebastian Lipp has just done to him in the last 10 laps.
Yeah, really applying the pressure strongly throughout this race. We talked about the quirks and features of this track. This feels like one where if you apply the pressure well enough, you can really force a racer into making a mistake, despite the fact you've got a lot of runoff area here. This track can bite if you have a small little off-track excursion, as that is a dive from Franco Sanchez Buckley on Rafa Blanco, heading down into the turn. You can see them wiggling all over the exit curb. That's a driver spinning a little bit farther in the back. I believe that may be Akas, who's spun off into the hairpin. Gonna lose out on some spots. Gonna be side by side now with Havard Gullix, and I really think the damage has set in that number 3 car, as he's down 14th, effectively in no man's land.
Yeah, a long way down, unfortunately. So 3 laps to go at the end of this race. Sorry, 3 laps to go until the end of this race, I should say. That would be weird, wouldn't it? Carry on for another 3 laps. There's the move down the inside, indeed, and that's way too late, unfortunately, for Mehmet Barat-Akas, who gets the most bizarre exit here then on Gullikson as a result. I mean, he misses by such a long way. Of course, the hairpin goes to the right. He goes all the way 180 degrees round to the left, and so he gets a run back on Gullikson again. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, quite in that manner, but there you go. He was careful rejoining the circuit at least to not clatter into the side of Gullikson, which we have seen in the past, but there we go. Yes, 3 laps to go, including the one that they've just begun, and this battle for fourth position is probably going to be the one to watch. Caruso in front of Buckley, in front of Blanco, in front of Kyriakopoulos, and, you know, there's going to be no teamwork anymore, you would say. It is going to be all go from here. A look from Blanco, sorry. But it's Buckley who makes the move. Oh, Caruso with a late move there. That was very late, too late perhaps. And there was contact there. Blanco into Buckley, who was really slowed down there by Caruso, and Rafa Blanco takes a position for free.
Yeah, right on bumper cars as they had their way through the hairpin. Blanco into the back of Caruso, and then Buckley into the back of Blanco. Rafa Blanco, always good to see him out there on the racetrack, as he was actually our champion from Season 2, as a black flag, it's looking like, from Franco Sanchez Buckley, running in P6, the driver of that number 6 car, getting that black flag as a result of that contact. To all of you tuning into this broadcast thinking, hey, what's the deal with the penalties? This is the official Radical SR10 series. This isn't a league race, so you've got those regular iRacing 17x limits for black flags, and I think that may have put him over the edge there. A little bit of contact being made, and then more contact from behind, heading through the hairpin. Unfortunately there for Franco Sanchez Buckley, a racer who we've seen a lot of here in these SR10s, certainly in the past. I remember him nearly winning a championship in the 2024 Radical Americas Championship when I had the privilege to cover that season of that amazing series. He's a good racer in these SR10s, but unfortunately that penalty really going to take him out of the fight.
Yeah, it is. I don't think he's going to come in and serve it. I think he'll enjoy himself for the rest of the race on the circuit, and then take his medicine afterwards. But let's see what happens here, how he gets involved, and whether he maybe makes it 3 wide. He will do. Buckley wants to go out with a bang here as Caruso's stuck in the middle. Blanco on the outside line, and Kyriakopoulos, oh, look at this! He goes to the inside of all 3 of them. He's going to take 4th place by the looks of things. Here is the Swiss driver. What a great bit of foresight that was, just to see what was happening in front of him and take all the places that he needed. In fact, he doesn't get Buckley. He just gets the 2 of them. But that won't matter with the penalty coming. Kyriakopoulos is technically 4th. Caruso and Blanco have been put behind him, and they continue their fight. Caruso stays in front of Blanco. What a bit of driving that was from Dennis Kyriakopoulos.
Yeah, what a battle, what a fight back from all of those racers, keeping it clean, small little bits of contact every now and then, but that was incredible stuff as they had their way into the hairpin. Keep an eye on the racer in front of Kyriakopoulos, so Franco Sanchez Buckley doesn't come in this time by to serve that black flag. He won't be able to. You can't do it on the last lap. It is a drive-through unless my memory is failing me at this point in time, so he will have to just take a post-race penalty and all of that, unless, I'm trying to think whether or not it's just far enough whereby iRacing would probably whack him with an immediate DQ as he came across the line. I don't think iRacing would do that, but again, there are certain amounts of laps that you can run out there before you come in to serve that black flag. So I'm not sure what the deal may be for Franco Sanchez, but either way, no matter how you slice it, he's not going to finish in the top 5, whether he gets class well farther back or just gets sent down to the back. We'll just have to wait and see. For now, though, the battling is still going to be intense between these racers as Sebastian Lipp is on that white flag lap and on track for victory.
Yeah, and his teammates are trying to make places behind Kyriakopoulos on the outside of Buckley. Oh, Caruso's hit him! Caruso hits him into the hairpin, and I'm afraid he's put his nose in there at a gap that didn't exist. And unfortunately, he sent Kyriakopoulos right down to the back there. That is a real shame. And Caruso now will try to get the outside of Buckley. That's side-to-side contact too. Oh, and off. There's a bit of bad temper now. Caruso's got a penalty because of that really needless bit of contact. And he's going to be down towards the back. This race and this battle especially has taken an ugly turn at the end of this one. Caruso's got a penalty, so has Buckley. Blanco's going to finish fourth. Schuska's going to get fifth in the end, but out front, Sebastian Lipp is going to win. He's beaten Andre Castro tonight in a straight fight, and he wins for the second time in 3 weeks in our broadcasted 2100 GMT broadcasted races. Castro, though, of those who have done well this season in our broadcasted races, does by far the best tonight, and finished a long way in front of the likes of Gullikson and Friedrich, who have done well historically in this championship season as well. Friedrich will end up only 8th, I think, after the penalties applied there. But what was going on into the hairpin? I can't work it out. Caruso was, trying to get past Kyriakopoulos, but sticking his nose in there and getting a penalty because of it is just, bad decision-making, really.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there for Packy Caruso, the red mist descending. I mean, we had 2 red cars in the midst of that battling, so maybe that was the reason why it took place. But no, right at the end, going for that move, picking up the penalty. Really, everybody going for those outrageous moves, those outrageous dives. That right there was a spin from Peter Evany right at the very end. Oh, as you can see, that rejoin nearly ends an absolute catastrophe. It brought out the best and brought out the worst in some of these racers. Some of them were able to shine while others had the self-preservation skills of a cranberry. We'll say, though, Sebastian Lipp, kind of talking about the comparisons between this track and Zandvoort, he gets a second win, the last win this season coming at Zandvoort, so maybe there's a bit of method to my madness.
He's taking it by 1.4 tonight, ahead of Andre Castro, with Sully Rettinen on the podium as well. Pretty comfortable for him in the end, actually. Rafa Blanco and Packy Caruso get through that group in the end to finish in the top 5, and Buckley's there as well. So I wonder whether those penalties haven't been applied yet. But anyway, that's how they came over the line. Alexander Schuska, gets 7th ahead of George Gonzaga. Denis Kyriakopoulos, who unfortunately dropped tonight, for Andreas Friedrich, who finishes in 10th. Heinz Brome was in that group as well. Oscar Pesavento a little bit further removed from that, with the next group behind him, Mehmet Berat-Akuz, Havard Gullikson and Peter Evany all there. Christoph Lipp had that early penalty, early damage, I think it might have been actually, and he dropped down. And unfortunately, Kieran Gerrity came in after the opening lap. After that opening lap incident, of course, his spin coming out of turn 12. Well, that was a very, very busy race, I've got to say, over the course of 14 laps. Normally, we see that sort of battle for the race lead, but actually we didn't really get any sort of battle for the race lead there. As I said, Sebastian Lipp outclassed Andre Castro, and we don't see that too often.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was tame up at the front and pandemonium behind. Sebastian Lipp, though, the racer that occasionally pops into these 2100 GMT broadcasted races and always puts on a good performance, able to get his second win of this championship. And that is the first driver outside of Andre Castro to get multiple wins. Castro's gotten 3. Sebastian Lipp just got a second here today. We saw a couple of seasons ago Christoph Lipp, his brother, do really well in one of these seasons and get multiple wins and really be a big thorn in the sides of Castro in the final stretch of the season. So keep an eye on Sebastian to maybe impress, as we know the updated results in all of that, with the penalty coming down for Franco Sanchez Buckley. Did not come in to serve that penalty. You can't do it on the last lap considering it is a drive-through, so he was classed down in 15th at the very end. The only racer that he finished in front of, the only racers I should say that he finished in front of out there on the track was Christoph Lipp, the only driver who crossed the line on the circuit to finish behind him, and Kian Garrity, who ran into those difficulties right at the drop of the green flag. So that right there was the final results, I should say, if I can get the grammar out properly. But Ewan, it looks like we also have our P2 finisher of Andre Castro there in the interview waiting area. I'll pass the mic back off to you.
Yeah, we normally get a few drivers in, but Castro the only one for the moment. So we'll chat again. Andre, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Second place tonight behind Sebastian Lipp. 1.4 seconds the gap at the line there as well. How are you feeling at the end of that one? Because for a time you two were pretty close. You looked like, to me, like you were hanging back and waiting for an opportunity to strike later in the race, but that moment never really arrived. How was the speed out there tonight, and how was the race?
Yeah, it was good. I wasn't really hanging back there. That was all I had. And then I made a couple mistakes, and he got away. He was incredibly fast, as you can see, by third place being almost 10 seconds back. So just to stick with him was difficult enough, and kind of kept slipping back a little bit. And finally, he broke the draft. So he was just really, really quick. But no, it was good. Probably got lucky that some of the top guys on the first lap had issues, and yeah, besides that, just did the best I could. I think I'm the only guy right now who can kind of be top two on pace at every track with, so that feels good, and hopefully keep the form going.
You've finished first or second 4 out the last 5 weeks, so that would certainly stand up in the races that we've broadcasted here anyway. How's the racing been this week, though, at the Hockenheim? It was a crazy race behind you tonight, but has the races for the wins generally been a little bit closer? Because I remember a race a few seasons back where the races for the race win was also like that, but not tonight, of course. How has the racing generally been compared to what you would expect from this week?
Yeah, this was the only race I did this week, but last time we raced here last season, I remember having a good battle with, I think it was Lassie Sorensen, and, that came down to the wire. But, yeah, sometimes it's just tough when you have someone fast enough to kind of, keep everybody else at bay. Sometimes it just depends on the relative pace of the drivers, and today Sebastian had us covered. But it'll be good to round out the rest of the season. Hopefully have some good races. Monza will be interesting. Haven't raced there with this car, and looking forward tomorrow to the F4 Global Championship that I got the chance to do. So that'll be fun as well.
I think broadcasted on the iRacing channel as well. So we'll see you there tomorrow. But thanks for chatting to us, Andre, and congrats again on a second place finish tonight.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Andre Castro, second place tonight at the Hockenheimring in our 2100 GMT broadcasted split race, which next week comes to you from the Autodrome Nazionale Monza. As Castro said, haven't raced there before in this series. I haven't seen a race in this series around there either recently anyway, so looking forward to that. There's a lot of slipstream around there. We get quite a lot of slipstream from some non-slipstream circuits in these cars, so goodness knows what that's going to be like in 7 days' time. Make sure you join us back for that again. That's about it from us tonight on Racespot TV and the iRacing YouTube channels as well. I've been Ewan Leary alongside Rob Mounds tonight. With Hugo Louise behind the cameras, we'll all be back in 1 week's time from Monza for the next round in the championship. Until then, it's goodbye for now.